Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator Duckworth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the issue of diversity, I think it is important to note that greater diversity within the military does make our military more effective. I'll just give you one example. To have in the Hawaii National Guard native Tagalog-speaking personnel who can blend in with the local population in the remote islands of the Philippines in the hunt for Islamic extremists is helpful. The fact that the Illinois National Guard has Polish-speaking personnel who can actually be in Ukraine helping train Ukrainians because we have those language abilities is good for military readiness. I speak Thai. The fact that I could speak with my Thai military counterparts when I was wearing the uniform of this great nation was helpful to military readiness. To have native Thai speaking and Indonesian speaking soldiers who can participate in Cobra Gold and in Garuda Shield is helpful to this nation and in fact helps with our readiness. I want to thank Mr. Chairman and thank our witnesses for appearing today. As you noted in your statements in response to my colleagues' questions, the services are struggling to meet their recruiting goals, in part due to a historically small pool of eligible recruits. And I appreciate your department's efforts to address the many causes of this problem, but I do think we need to also talk about other ways to expand that recruiting pool. This year, I'm introducing the ENLIST Act. This legislation will allow the Department of Defense to expand its recruiting pool to include individuals like DACA recipients and other longtime residents in this country who can pass a DoD background check and meet the service's high standards for enlistment. So we don't lower the standards at all. In fact, we require them to meet the standards. While maintaining the department's security standards, the ENLIST Act will aid the service's recruitment efforts by allowing a highly skilled and motivated individuals to succeed in the military. Who would be the people who could do this? DACA folks, dreamers, people who came here on an education visa and attended an American university and now cannot get a work visa here would be likely to be able to qualify for this. To all of our witnesses, I'd like to hear from each of you whether you think the ENLIST Act's expansion of the pool of possible recruits would benefit military recruitment efforts, especially since it does not lower the standards and you must pass the background checks.
Senator Duckworth, I'm familiar with the legislation. I'm committed to working with you, as I am with the rest of the department, to ensure that we can address the ultimate goal here, which is how do we expand the pool of qualified and interested and engaged applicants to join the armed forces. I will just say that, certainly there's ways we can work through the considerations that you identified in your question, such as making sure that we provide the right background checks and that they meet our standards. In addition, I'll just note that how we engage a broader set of the population is also really important for us. So in the Army in this last year, looking at just lawful permanent residents, we're undertaking a different campaign with Army Recruiting Command, where we're specifically looking for soldiers with those backgrounds to be able to engage with those communities, often in their specific native languages, to be able to attract them to come and join the Army.
Thank you. Secretary Raven?
Thank you, Senator. Same answer. Expanding the pool of candidates is very important to the Navy and Marine Corps. And let me tell you just one story. I visited a ship recently where I saw a sailor who was a little bit older than you'd expect. He had grown up in Nigeria, came to this country, got a green card, and was just inspired by what the Navy could offer him. And so he joined and is now beginning his time in the Navy. It's an inspiring story, especially for someone who grew up so far away. So I think offering these types of opportunities to more people is a very worthy goal.
Thank you. Secretary Jones?
Senator, I agree that any path to expanding the pool of applicants that can meet our high standards is valuable. So we look forward to working with you to see how these types of efforts can progress. And within the Air Force, we're also looking at a path to naturalization for those who come and serve. We have a pilot that's going on at our basic military training in that regard. And so I think that's a similar intent to what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. I want to pull a thread that several of my colleagues have raised related to the recent Army survey. When asked to compare different potential barriers to service, respondents weighed most heavily on the idea that they'd be putting the rest of their lives on hold if they joined the military. The reserve components can give individuals the opportunity to serve in the military while also pursuing a civilian career. As a member of the reserve component my entire military career, I was working on a PhD, trying to join the Foreign Service until an RPG changed my life trajectory. Like my colleague, Senator Ernst, my reserve service was an integral part of my life, but not an interruption. Yet the reserve components have largely also struggled to meet recruiting goals. To all the witnesses, can you speak to your strategy for reaching potential recruits who may be interested in becoming reservists as opposed to serving in an active component? And what steps can you take to improve your marketing efforts and better message the specific benefits of a special role in the reserve component, that's reserve forces and National Guard, to our national defense?
Senator Duckworth, I fully agree with you, and I think one of the first things that we did starting last year was to surge the marketing and advertising budget and the number of recruiters that are working on specific recruiting for the reserve component. I think another thing that we need to do in response to this specific issue is to address and identify and educate on the range of career options and flexibilities that a career in Army Reserve would afford a young American. You know, whether you've had some college experience, you have experience in a certain career field, and you want to learn something different, this is a place where you can possibly learn and get training to achieve your career ambitions, even if you want to try something different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. In the last year, we've stood up a Naval Reserve Recruiting Command to focus on those opportunities for those who may want to serve in the Navy part-time. You will also see more targeted advertising. Previously, the Navy had, join the Navy, see the world. We're focusing more on the opportunities to join the Naval Reserves, and the Marine Corps has had a very strong Marine Reserve recruiting program for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Senator, we also have launched new recruiting campaigns for both the Air Force Reserve and Air National Guard. We appreciate the additional funding in 23 that will allow us to continue those efforts. One thing that we have seen as a challenge that's impacting our numbers is our high retention that is impacting those who previously served moving on to the Guard and Reserves. So we're having to expand the pool that we consider for the Guard and Reserve for those who have never previously served, and looking for new ways to do that. But again, appreciate the additional efforts from the Congress that allow us to do that.
Thank you. As I yield back to the chairman, I also want to mention the Lionesses who demonstrated the importance of having diversity, because to have that all-female Marine Corps unit allowed us to gather intelligence and interact with women in Afghanistan in a way that all-male units could never do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Senator Schmidt.